A new order in the Middle East is taking shape. Heinz Alfred Kissinger said, Shai-Iraq reconciliation is changing the strategic situation in the Middle East, and its significance is no less than the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and the United States. At the invitation of the King of Saudi Arabia, Iranian President Raisi will officially visit Saudi Arabia. For the Middle East, it is equivalent to US President Nixon's visit to China. After the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and the United States, China and the entire Western world have achieved a great reconciliation. Britain, Germany, Japan, South Korea, Italy, Canada, and Australia, etc. Most of the Western countries that have established diplomatic relations with China today turn to the East because of the easing of Sino-US relations. Today, the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Iran will also promote the great reconciliation in the Middle East world. Both Saudi Arabia and Iran are major countries in the Middle East. After the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Iran, Saudi Arabia's brother countries such as the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Egypt, etc., will ease their relations with Iran and increase economic and trade cooperation with Iran. Similarly, Iran's fraternal countries such as Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Yemen will ease their relations with Saudi Arabia. In addition, the war in Yemen can also be stopped. Saudi Arabia does not need to spend a lot of money to buy advanced weapons from the United States to go to Yemen to be beaten, and the UAE does not have to follow Saudi Arabia to send troops to be beaten. For oil tycoons in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, as long as there is no war, the money earned from oil business will never be spent, and the good times will last for a long time. In the eyes of many people, after the Iraq War, the Iraqi government supported by the United States is pro-American. But this is seriously inconsistent with the facts. Iraq implements a parliamentary system, with a total of 341 members of parliament, of which Shia members occupy 173 seats, and the remaining 168 seats are divided among Sunnis and Kurds. The Kurds are in a sect of their own and have never made peace with the Sunnis or Shiites, and the greatest power in Iraq is also in the hands of the Shiites. In the Iraqi Constitutional Council, only 2 of the 55 members are Sunni. Later, under the intervention of the United States, the number of sons was increased by 17. In Iraq, 60% of the people are Shiites, only 20% are Sunnis, and 20% are Kurds. This is doomed that under the electoral mechanism, the Shiites have a natural advantage. However, for the sake of separation of powers and balances, the Iraqi constitution stipulates that the post of speaker should be held in rotation by Shia, Sunni, and Kurds. In the case of Shiites occupying the majority, the president and prime minister were all taken down by Shiites, and the post of Speaker of the House of Representatives was replaced by a Sunni when the Shia's rotation expired. The United States overthrew the Sunni Saddam Hussein, but under the halo of democracy, Iraq established a pro-Iranian Shia regime. When the United States blocked Iranian oil, Iraq became a big middleman for reselling Iranian oil. The United States felt betrayed when it discovered that Iraq was helping Iran resell oil. Back then, the US military helped Iraq overthrow Saddam Hussein, but now, you made friends with Iran, which the US hates the most, and you must be severely sanctioned. As a result, the United States restricted Iraq's dollar settlement. However, from the perspective of national interests, Iraq could not give up earning the difference in the price of Iranian oil, but it also had to bypass the US dollar settlement system, so it turned to China and settled in RMB. In Karamay City, Xinjiang, China, there is a bank called Kunlun Bank under PetroChina, which specializes in international trade settlement of Iranian oil. You can find that this democratic Iraq built by the United States is not pro-American. This change comes from the linkage between China and Iran in the Middle East. China has not only brought peace to Saudi Arabia and Iran, but also brought peace to the entire Middle East. Just like the reconciliation between China and the United States in the 1970s, the entire East Asia ushered in a great reconciliation. China, Japan, and South Korea are on the road of comprehensive cooperation and peaceful development. Since the United Kingdom took over the world hegemony, the later Soviet Union and the United States have implemented a Middle East strategy of differentiation and disintegration in the Middle East. Their method is very simple, that is, make friends with one faction and attack the other faction. When it has a good relationship with Iran, it suppresses Saudi Arabia, and when it has a good relationship with Saudi Arabia, it suppresses Iran. During the civil war in the Islamic world, when Iraq fought against Iran, the United States and the Soviet Union not only refused to persuade them to fight, but also turned on each other, selling weapons to both sides and making a lot of money. The essence of this phenomenon is to seek hegemony in the Middle East. Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union all aimed at hegemony in the Middle East. The United States supported the Arab countries of Israel, and the Soviet Union supported the Arab countries to fight against Israel. They have never thought about how to construct a new security order in the Middle East, with regional peace as the pillar, to promote the collective prosperity of the Arab world. After the disintegration of the Soviet Union, today's Russia has not faded away from the idea of world hegemony. The Russian version of national revival is essentially hegemonic revival. And the United States, as the only hegemony owner in the world today, creates conflicts and confrontations, and forms different camps around the world, and finally uses the role of the world's police to publicize global hegemony. The most typical is the Middle East. The United States first made friends with the Pahlavi dynasty of Iran and supported Iran and Israel to jointly fight against Arab countries. However, after the Pahlavi dynasty was overthrown, the United States immediately promoted the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and other Arab powers with Israel, and reversely squeezed out Iran. Under this set of operations by the United States, the Middle East will never be able to restore peace, and it will never be able to achieve real peace. However, the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Iran facilitated by China has completed this mission. In the Middle East, Iran is the second most populous country after Egypt. But among the Gulf countries, Iran is the most populous country. Iran has a population of 87.92 million, more than Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Kuwait combined. The most important thing in the hands of oil countries is money, while Iran has a vast market demand and cheap labor, but has no money and no technology. As long as Iran opens its doors, the abundant capital accumulated in the hands of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Kuwait can be continuously invested in Iran, while Iran provides a vast market and cheap labor, and China can provide technical support and security guarantees. This model is very similar to China in the early days of reform and opening up, with cheap labor and markets, but no funds and no technology. After opening the country, a large amount of overseas funds poured in, and the establishment of foreign factories also trained a large number of Chinese skilled workers. The most typical example is a joint venture automobile factory. Although it cannot obtain core technology, it has cultivated millions of Chinese auto industry workers and laid the foundation for the rise of China's auto industry. In the future, Saudi Arabia will contribute money, Iran will contribute its power and market, and China will contribute its technology and weapons, which will form a huge China-Middle East economic cycle. In this cycle, Saudi Arabia's investment in Iran can solve the problem of capital surplus, and make more money. Iran can introduce foreign capital from Saudi Arabia, and use the money to carry out construction, such as houses, schools, hospitals, roads, bridges, 5G communications, etc., so as to start the modernization of Iran and make Tehran the next megacity in the Middle East. Technologies that Saudi Arabia cannot provide will be provided by China. For example, Saudi Arabia invested in Iran's high-speed rail construction and obtained the equity of Iran's high-speed rail. Iran took Saudi money to buy China's high-speed rail. After Iran builds the high-speed rail, Saudi Arabia and Iran will make money, and then they will come together to buy Chinese weapons and jointly defend the economic achievements of the two countries. China then uses the money to repurchase oil from Saudi Arabia and Iran, forming a China-Middle East economic cycle. This is a big cycle that cannot be limited by the dollar. When the scale of this economy becomes larger and larger, the degree of internationalization of the RMB will become higher and higher. Over time will give the answer. A new order in the Middle East has been formed. This is the fundamental reason why Kissinger would say that the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Iran is changing the strategic pattern in the Middle East. Okay, that's all for today. Please put your comments below, and share your insightful ideas with other people. Your precious time with us is highly appreciated. See you.